This month's Member of the Month profile has a talent for creating graphics and animation that is equaled by his passion for sports. Ladies and gentlemen, Mike Peden.
Well, I started at the St. Paul Neighborhood Network as a volunteer 6 years ago, August of 2002, and that got started when I took a St. Paul Connections class that was being offered through the St. Paul School District, and SPNN was hosting it. It was a studio production class over at the Higher Ground Academy over at Concordia, and so to get the credit you needed to volunteer in a project. So then I decided to volunteer in a sporting event that they were taping. It's a now defunct basketball tournament, but after that I asked the producer, Steve Brunsberg, if there were any more opportunities, and then he told me about high school football, and so I contacted David Zerot, who was producer for that season, and then that's how it got started. I really didn't get more heavily involved until a few years later, but for the first few years I primarily worked on sports as a replay, and then I dabbled in the other positions, and then after I graduated high school is when I really started moving around and trying out different positions. With the journalism major that I had set pretty much since high school, about junior year is when I decided I wanted to pursue journalism because I simply like telling stories. I like to be the first one to get the information. I like to be the person that can relay the stories from the subjects to the audience. So that's why I've continued to pursue it.
And she cleans up the mess. Taisha Smith drives, uses the backboard to sink one. Central will go to the free throw line from here on out. Taylor with the right-handed layup. Keystone Productions proudly presents high school girls basketball. Today we come to you from Cottage Grove, Minnesota, where we're featuring a non-conference game with the Park of Cottage Grove Wolfpack from the Suburban East Conference and the Minneapolis South Tigers from the Minneapolis City Conference.
I started doing play-by-play. I'm a play-by-play commentator for the basketball games that I produce on my own. They're high school girls basketball primarily. And what happens there with the basketball broadcast, it's a small crew. It's usually a 3-person crew and a 3-camera shoot. 2 cameras are on the game, and then one's usually on the scoreboard. So the clock that appears in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen is the camera I bring. And then I go back and edit the games afterwards to make it look like a game that you would see on SPNN or a game that you would see on a big network television broadcast. And I got started into that just because I wanted to try it out after a while, and one of the producers at a football game the fall before I started suggested I should give it a shot because I would semi-commentate the action of football games or other things as they were going on, and I just was fascinated by it. And then as I became more comfortable with having myself or seeing myself on television and just being on camera, I figured I'd give it a shot.
Fans are fired up. They don't want to go away quietly.
The autism series got started almost by accident. I was in an electronic art class at the University of Minnesota as a sophomore, and one of the assignments we were given was to create a documentary. And so I remember my experience at a social justice retreat a few months earlier, and being the only person out of a group of 75 with autism spectrum disorder, and just remember having this butterfly in my stomach, being the trailblazer, being the lone representative. But then I thought, if I remembered that experience, and people complimented on how I was able to articulate my story, so I thought I could translate that into television with all the sources I've connected with. So it was a 15-minute version for class. That was the maximum. So I went back and extended it to a half-an-hour program, and then submitted that to SPNN, and then I uploaded that on YouTube, and within days I got a lot of hits. Now, the first program, it's been seen over 20,000 times, which over 18 months isn't the biggest drop in the bucket, but it's the most watched program out of the 129 videos I have at this point. It told me that the series, that there's something people want, that I've got something to offer the audience that they can use well beyond the first showing, where as basketball games, they're fun to watch, but after a while they get stale. The autism documentaries, while they age too, the material and the information that people can learn by watching those programs doesn't get old. So I pretty much can do anything except the audio board. I've tried out different things just to get some experience, and I've always gone with the motto, and perhaps this is just logic dictating it, but if the more diverse you are, the more opportunities you'll create for yourself later on, whether it's here or at another station or just somewhere along the field of television production. But I'd have to say I'm very fond of the graphics programs, Inscriber, and even on the shows that I produce myself, I am very graphics intensive. I feel that it can add a lot to a production. You don't want to overdo it, though, otherwise it can make your product look clunky. But if you know how to use it correctly, you can really add a lot of interesting things to a production that otherwise wouldn't be accessible. And the reason why I liked it was because with football games and other sporting events, I noticed they were pretty light on it, and I would watch events from professional networks, from CBS, ABC, ESPN, and I thought, how could I take the ideas they're using and implement them for our productions? And then I just spent a lot of time learning the Inscriber software, learning Photoshop, learning the graphics design program in Premiere Pro, and just educating myself. And I feel that has been the best tool in the years I've spent here, because you can read manuals, you can watch tutorials, and they can help, but if you go in there and just spend even an hour a day or an hour a week messing around with the program and learning how things work on your own, you're going to have a lot of knowledge that you can pass on to other people.